Ladies and gentlemen, this story actually comes out of London, so it's a little bit different than what we normally talk about. We normally talk about stories in the United States, but I thank y'all who used my email and sent me this story. I thought it was very important because people abroad are going through a lot of the same things that we go through here in the United States of America. So I want to tell you about this father and this woman that you see on my screen. And yes, I guess you can call them a male and a female, even though they look a bit odd, but nonetheless, a dad who tried to push blame on others after his baby girl died. This beautiful princess that you see right here on my screen. Believe it or not, guys. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you guys some details that are not going to sit well with your sensibility. So if you need to exit, that is your disclaimer. But that baby right there suffered 60 broken bones and this dad has been given a tougher prison sentence for aggravating circumstances. First and foremost, let's talk about that liner right there. 60, not 6, not 2, 60. I'm pretty sure a baby's body is still developing at 8 weeks old. Like, I didn't even realize, I know that a human body does have more than 60 bones, but that's damn near every bone in this baby's body. 60 broken bones. Benjamin O'Shea, who's 26 years old, this dusty looking dude right here, of Rotherhithe, and Naomi Johnson, 24 years old, this dude looking female right there, 24 years old, of Battersea, were sentenced today, Friday, January 28th, 2 days ago, at London Inner Crown Court. They were sentenced to 8 years and 8 months and 7 years and 2 months, respectively, for causing or allowing a child to suffer serious harm and on the separate charge of child cruelty. I didn't hear a life sentence in there. Broken bones. 60 broken bones. This followed despicable abuse in their small Southwark. Sorry, some of these names I'm not going to be able to pronounce very well. Flat preceding the death of their baby daughter, 8-week-old Amina-Faye Johnson. And she is the most precious baby you could imagine. You look at that smile, and I want you guys to tell me, when you look at this baby's face, what would make a person want to hurt this beautiful baby girl? Hurt this beautiful soul for what? What could this baby have done to deserve something like that? This baby can't speak for herself. She can't defend herself. And there's just not that much losing your control, losing your temper in the world to justify what this baby went through. I think a life sentence for both of them would have been more appropriate, but let me give you guys some more details. Let me keep going. A 4-week trial in November heard on how April 26, 2019, Johnson and O'Shea called the emergency service number, which is 999, where they're at, which is kind of like 911, after baby Amina stopped breathing. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but were unable to save her. Amina was then found with 60 broken bones, including 41 fractures to her ribs and 24 limb bone fractures, including inflicted on 7 occasions. Can we get a hashtag 1 year for every bone? If we really believe that babies' lives matter in the world, not just the United States, they easily should have gotten 1 year for every broken bone in this baby's body. The case was described as unusual by the judge because the prosecution was unable to bring a charge of murder or manslaughter on account of no doctor being able to determine an act of violence which caused death. How, London? How? How do y'all have people in that country? How do you have doctors in this area that you qualify as doctors, but they can't figure out that this was murder? You can't qualify this as murder. You can't quantify and see that this was child abuse that led to murder. I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't want to visit London. I don't have that on my bucket list. That's not a place that I want to go and visit because it seems like they got doctors that are so damn stupid. I hope I would never get sick in a place like that. Hello? Would you want to go to a doctor if they can't figure out that a child that has 60 broken bones was probably murdered? Oh, let me guess. You know what it probably was? Maybe they said that the child was in a bathtub and slipped and fell and ended up with 60 broken bones on their own, and the mom and dad or whatever the hell they are didn't do anything to this baby. Is that what it is? There would be bruising. If this happened on multiple occasions, you would probably have proof that there were old injuries that were healing on top of the new injuries. That's pretty easy to determine. 60 broken bones, and because you got incompetent, stupid-ass doctors in London, what do these doctors do for a living? Do they dig ditches? Or do they help people? Like where did y'all get y'all's license at to practice? That makes absolutely no sense. But before I continue to be too disrespectful, let me keep going. They couldn't determine an act of violence. That is about as incompetent as it gets. But the judge concluded that O'Shea's calling of the ambulance and attempts at CPR were because the consequences finally caught up and panic ensued, while added that these were vicious and deliberate injuries, including a broken femur, which would have required significant force, because the femur bone in the leg is a very big and strong bone, even for an 8-week-old baby. That is a very developed bone. But even with him describing it as vicious and deliberate injuries, just you describing it that way alone, that can't get you a murder charge? No manslaughter? Okay. All right. Let's keep going. The judge commented, that's the tragedy in this case, that the fractures in a baby that is clearly immobile do not show up, and that a healthcare worker or relative might have stopped all of this. And I disagree there, but let's keep going. Following this baby's death, and I want y'all to look at this baby's face and just remember everything that I'm saying. That's why this really gripped my heart, and I had to talk about this. Following this baby girl's death, the court heard how O'Shea tried to push blame on others by posing as a neighbor on the phone to the police and emailing the police purporting to be Johnson. Is that not perjury? Giving false claim? Is that not an arrestable, jailable offense that you can get years in prison for? Lying? Especially when the lie involves a dead baby. Yes? Or am I wrong? We are live right now. If I'm saying something that's wrong, guys, please let me know. Don't let me continue to talk about this case live right now, and I'm saying something that's wrong and nobody correct me. He posed as a neighbor to call to try to keep himself out of trouble, and then emailed the police. Judge Peters also referred to O'Shea posing as a magistrate in a forged letter in an attempt to fool Johnson into believing there was a limited investigation into Amina's death, though, as the letter was never used to try to influence the police investigation, for example, it was not considered an aggravating circumstance during sentencing. It seems that they have every excuse not to give this baby justice against the people who gave this baby 60 broken bones and plenty of injuries. Like this baby was just born with these injuries or something. O'Shea also lied to Johnson in the course of their relationship, claiming that he had toured Afghanistan and suffered from PTSD when in fact he was actually in the Army Reserve. Can we get a hashtag false flag? Lying about the military? Are my military people not upset? Do we have anybody who has either military experience or military family members? Are you guys not offended by the fact that he tried to claim that he was in Afghanistan, suffered from PTSD? I think that's lower than low. That's lower than a bow-legged caterpillar. How about that? Lying on your service. Ain't that a bitch? The court also heard how this alleged man was seen shaking a baby by his previous partner. He was seen shaking a baby by his previous girlfriend, previous partner, whatever you want to say, while he had received 2 cautions for breaking down his mom's door for violence towards his partner. Stolen valor, thank you. False flag, stolen valor. Thank you for correcting me. That's stolen valor. Stolen valor. Hashtag stolen valor. He's out here lying, false flagging. O'Shea's own defense, Edmund Vickers, said, "What a pathetic individual Mr. O'Shea was at the time, how needy and manipulative he was, and how toxic that relationship was. He will have plenty of time now to reflect on these events, but of course, he must live with his actions for a very long time, which if you ask me, that should have been life in prison. You should not get another opportunity in this life." Let me see. He is what? How old is this fool? He's 26. He'll be out of prison if he does his full time before he's 40 years old. I just don't think people like this. Like, I do believe in some level of rehabilitation. Not in this story. Not these people. Not that fool. Not that fool-ass woman for what they did to this baby, this beautiful baby, Amina-Faye Johnson, who couldn't speak for herself nor defend herself. It's almost like they put her, like this baby, in a blender or something. Like put her in a dryer and turned it on like as fast as it could possibly go. How do you break 60 bones on a baby? How do you even do that? I don't think if you ran this baby over with a car, you could have ended up with 60 broken bones. But I'm going to skip some of this other information here, and I'm getting this from mylondon.news, so thank you very much for the article, but I'm going to skip some of this because there's a lot more to talk about, but let me give you guys the fair usage. Let's get it. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. Man, I hope that y'all who are hearing this story are just as offended as I am. He's going to be out before the age of 40. Lied about everything that happened in abused this baby. They both did in the worst way, and they will both be out of prison before the age of 40 years old. They shouldn't be let out of prison until age 400, not 40. That's ridiculous. I'm just really upset. I apologize. I'm really losing my cool. But if you guys are listening to this story, if you would do me a favor and please click that thumbs up if you're listening to this story. This will help share baby Amina's story. And maybe we can get justice not only here in the United States, but abroad, especially in London, because this baby really got a raw deal. Let's hear these news stories. Let's get it.
Firstly, I'd like to say that no jail term will ever be worth the life of baby Amina-Faye. It is difficult to speak of justice in a case like this. However, I hope that today's sentence is a clear message that these children mattered, and those who think they can get away with inflicting such abuse will be punished. This is a truly heartbreaking case that has touched all of us who have worked on bringing O'Shea and Johnson before the court for their monstrous crimes. Children depend on adults, and the children in this case were sorely betrayed by O'Shea and Johnson in the most tragic of ways. There were no observable injuries, and the cause of her death was originally thought to be sudden, unexpected death, unexplained death in infants. That was until the post-mortem x-rays revealed a litany of injuries Amina-Faye had sustained in her short 8-week life. In 8 weeks of life, Amina-Faye suffered an unimaginable number of injuries. Amina-Faye was found to have over 65 fractured bones in her body, including every rib and every limb.
Every bone and every limb. That is disgusting.
Firstly, I'd like to say that no jail term will ever be worth the life of baby Amina-Faye. It is difficult to speak of justice in a case like this. However, I hope that today's sentence is a clear message that these children mattered, and those who think they can get away with inflicting such abuse will be punished. This is a truly heartbreaking case that has touched all of us who have worked on bringing O'Shea and Johnson before the court for their monstrous crimes. Children depend on adults, and the children in this case were sorely betrayed by O'Shea and Johnson in the most tragic of ways. There were no observable injuries, and the cause of her death was originally thought to be sudden, unexpected death, unexplained death in infants. That was until the post-mortem x-rays revealed a litany of injuries Amina-Faye had sustained in her short 8-week life. In 8 weeks of life, Amina-Faye suffered an unimaginable number of injuries. Amina-Faye was found to have over 65 fractured bones in her body, including every rib and every limb.
Heard from Mel Presley there, who's the lead officer in this case, Detective Inspector. She described the monstrous crimes of Benjamin O'Shea. He's 26 years of age, an army reservist. Naomi Johnson, his partner, she's 24 years of age. No reaction from either of them in the dock as they were jailed. He was jailed for 8 years and 8 months, and Johnson, his partner, 7 years and 2 months. Now, they telephoned the emergency services on the morning of April 26th, 2019 to say that their baby daughter had stopped breathing. London Ambulance Service responded immediately. There were paramedics at the flat in Southwark in central London in a matter of minutes, but the paramedics could do nothing to revive the baby. They could do nothing to save Amina's life, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, what followed, there were investigations, the police were involved, and there was an x-ray of her little body. She was only 8 weeks old, and the x-ray showed up 65 separate fractures, 41 fractures of ribs and 24 of her limbs, and she was only 8 weeks old. Now, they were arrested And to begin with, they basically blamed each other. And then the mother at one point even blamed the paramedics, saying that they were at fault for what had happened to baby Amina. Now, the trial concluded here in November. They've been on remand ever since. And in the past hour, they have been sentenced. So no reaction from either defendant in the dock. And you heard the police detective there saying that Benjamin O'Shea is a Walter Mitty character. He was only ever an army reservist, but he had told his partner that he had served in Afghanistan and that he was suffering from PTSD, none of which was true. And they've both been taken down in the past few minutes.
Again, and thank you guys so much for listening to this particular story. It's beyond ridiculous that they could get this wrong. Like, this should have been a very easy open and shut case to say life in prison for both of them. Or you could have just simply said, we're going to give them 1 year in prison for every broken bone in this baby's body. And I think that would have been sufficient. And that would have put them at getting out of prison at almost like 80 or 90 years old. But instead, what you're doing is you're not holding people accountable. You should have laws like super aggravated child abuse laws like we do here in Texas. And maybe London can learn something. But to me, it just shows that there is a gross negligence against children, not only here, but worldwide. This is a worldwide problem. That these children can't speak for themselves. And apparently we don't believe that babies' lives matter. Like, we're so worried about all of these other things. We're more worried about celebrity news than we are about these little angels. And I don't understand how we can value adults more than we can value children, because the only way that you can get adults is if you valued children at some point. So it just seems like our thinking is very backwards. I think the courts got this wrong. And I think that every doctor in London should have their license revoked if you had 0 doctors that could clarify and classify this as murder and abuse. That is despicable. To this baby with such a beautiful smile, this princess could have grown up to become anything. Amina, young princess, R.I.P. And we thank you for listening to her story. And if you guys do live abroad, if you live in that area, make sure that you guys stand on this. Step up, speak out. This is a voting season, another voting year, but you guys can definitely make change. But you have to get out, march in the streets. You have to get out and research who you're voting for, find out what's going on. But there's clearly a lot of things that they miss with this story. But thank you guys for listening to the story with an open mind as well as an open heart. Thank you.